Today's episode is sponsored in part by Mercury, Morgan Stanley, Skims, and Boll & Branch. Mercury streamlines your banking and finances in one place so you can focus on growing your online business. Visit mercury.com to apply online in 10 minutes. Listen to candid conversations about people's fears and hopes around money on What Should I Do With My Money from Morgan Stanley. Search for What Should I Do With My Money in your podcast player now. I've been a Skims fan for years, and the Fits Everybody collection is a favorite I keep reaching for. Shop the Skims Fits Everybody collection at skims.com/goaldigger. Start building your sanctuary of comfort this fall with Boll & Branch. For a limited time, get 20% off your first set of sheets plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/goaldigger. As always, you can find all of our amazing deals in the show notes. Now, let's dive in. This episode is supported by What Should I Do With My Money from Morgan Stanley. This podcast makes getting advice about your money less intimidating. I checked out the episode about early retirement on What Should I Do With My Money, and honestly, I couldn't stop nodding along. It really got me thinking about what financial freedom actually looks like, whether that's being able to take time off without panicking, switching careers, or just having enough saved that you're not constantly stressed about money. The fear of never having enough while still wanting to actually enjoy life, I think we've all been there. Maybe you're wondering if you can ever get ahead or if building any kind of financial cushion is even possible with everything else going on. What I loved was hearing about how you can build flexibility into your finances with smart investing and planning, no matter where you're starting from. It made financial freedom feel less like some impossible dream and more like something you can work towards step by step. Search for What Should I Do With My Money in your podcast player, and we'll also include a link in the show notes. My thanks to What Should I Do With My Money and Morgan Stanley for their support.
When your instincts are saying, hey, I'm noticing this part of your work no longer brings you any joy at all, or this part of your work used to feel really vibrant, but because your life has changed, it has run its course. It is now like a burden instead of a joy. You can trust yourself.
I'm Jenna Kutcher, and I help you trade hustle for purpose and build a business that gives you the life you actually want to live. From a $300 Craigslist camera to a 7-figure business I run from home, I've learned that success isn't just about what you do, it's about how you live. Here, you'll get strategies that work, systems that give you your time back, and steps that turn your effort into results and impact. If you're ready for clarity, confidence, and a business that feels as good as it looks, you're in the right place. This is the Goal Digger Podcast. What happens when the life you built, personally or professionally, no longer fits who you're becoming? If you've ever looked at your business, your brand, even your personal relationships and thought, this used to feel right, but now I'm not so sure. Well, you're not alone, and you are definitely not broken. Today's guest, my friend, Jen Hatmaker, is no stranger to the hard and the holy work of reinvention. She's a best-selling author of 14 books, including 4 New York Times bestsellers, the host of an award-winning For the Love podcast, and a beloved leader to a community of over 1.6 million. But let me tell you, her newest book, Awake, isn't about business strategy. It's about what happens when your identity, your roles, and your life fall apart, and how to rebuild from a more honest, more aligned place. I was a very lucky recipient of what she calls a bootlegged copy of the book. I got it months and months ago. And let me tell you, I ate this book up. I would read parts of it to Drew. I would text Jen every single day about what was aligning me with this book. And while our stories are so different, this book holds so much relatability. It's unlike anything I've read in a very long time. So today, Jen is going to walk us through what she calls a midlife renaissance, not a crisis. And we are talking about being in a powerful season of reassessing basically everything you've been told about womanhood, about work, about hustle, about success, about your worth, and then reimagining a life and a business that actually feels like you. If you are an entrepreneur navigating change, if you are pivoting your purpose, if you are wondering what stays and what goes in this next chapter, this one's for you. Jen Hatmaker, welcome back to the Goal Digger Podcast. Okay, Jen, for the woman listening who has built something meaningful, maybe it's a business, maybe it's a platform, maybe it's a brand, but they feel like they've changed and whatever they built, it doesn't fit any longer. What is your message to her about staying versus starting over?
Oh, wow. I love that question. I'm someone who started my career in one zip code, and I have meandered and added and subtracted and expanded, and in other places shrunk so much over the last 15 years. And I don't know that a lot of people talk about that. Like, what happens? Because to be fair, my earliest business model was successful. I I came up through a space where I had a lot of traction and a lot of momentum and a lot of favor. And I was having a lot of what would be considered commercial success there. And that was sort of in evangelical, like women's subculture. That was where I began.
Yeah.
And so I 100% have changed as a human and evolved as a person of faith around what I believe, what I care about, where I want to spend my time and energy. And that had massive impact on my career. And so I think what I would say to those women who were like, I'm not the same woman that started this space 8 years ago or whatever it is for them. I have discovered I no longer want to do this portion of my business, but I really love this portion. I'd rather steer that direction. There's a million ways that we can evolve and change inside of our work. Yeah. But I think the primary thing, if I wanted to bring her all the way back to the absolute starting line of change or evolution, is that whatever your instincts are telling you, when your instincts are saying, hey, I'm noticing this part of your work no longer brings you any joy at all, or this part of your work used to feel really vibrant, but because your life has changed, it has run its course. It is now like a burden instead of a joy. If your instincts are saying, I didn't know about this new thing 8 years ago, but I know about it now, and I would rather spend more energy here, you can trust yourself.
Yes.
Now, that is not to say that whatever the subsequent actions and follow-up will be are not disruptive, because they probably will be. I'm not saying that's an easy path to say, I need to make a change inside my work or inside my career or inside my trajectory. But you know what you know. You know what you want. You know where you're at. You know which part of your business now feels out of alignment with your integrity. You know it. So trust yourself that you know what you know, that your wisdom is telling you something on purpose and that she can be trusted. Yes. I have never been led poorly by my own intuition, ever. Now, were some hard choices in front of that? For sure. And some loss and some risk and all that. But you're not wrong about you. You're not wrong about your work. You're not wrong about your career. So put your chips on you and move in that direction. That's my best advice.
Okay. I am obsessed with this. I am in a season of that right now, again, of like re-listening and like what no longer fits, even if it's successful, right? I actually told my team the other day, I have this vision of myself putting a book on the shelf, and I might revisit that book someday, or I might just look at the shelf and be like, that was a good one.
Oh, and
I know, I feel like it's interesting because as you were speaking, Jen, I think that so many entrepreneurs let their intuition guide them into the business. But once they create something or they see some semblance of success, it's like that piece of you kind of gets shut off and you start listening to even people like me or like everyone that knows everything else, because all of a sudden, you know, you're like, I don't know anything about doing this. And it's like, so how do we turn that back up? Let's talk about that, because actually I was laughing, but I have how do you consider this? Like,
it looks bootleg. It looks like you have a bootleg copy. Yeah.
I have a bootleg copy of your book. It's the best bootleg copy of the book ever, with my kids' own little bookmarks in it. And you talk about embodiment, and you talk about like learning how to trust yourself again, or how to almost like turn the volume back up into your inner knowing. And so How did you discover that? How did you even learn that you had maybe muted yourself in parts that you weren't paying attention to?
Boy, it's such a huge question. So for me, I'd have to go back earlier in my story and go to the root cause of who told me I was not trustworthy, who
Ooh,
taught me that I could not listen to my own wisdom, so although I kind of came up through a niche culture, which was kind of like a conservative church space, I don't think it is just exclusive
yeah.
to that community. I think a lot of young girls, but me particularly in my space, I was told from the earliest that I can remember that my body was a bit of a problem. Now, I got that message in a thousand ways. All of us did. If you're a living woman, you got that
Yes.
message that our bodies were a problem. So I learned that my body was a problem sexually for sure.
Yep.
I came up through purity culture, which meant
I texted you after reading that your
you did.
chapter about True Love Waits, and I said, Jen, I had a ring that said
did.
True Love Waits on my wedding finger.
That's right.
I remember. I was there. I was there with you.
Yes.
So yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. That like culture, it almost just idolizes like virginity for girls, let's be clear.
Yes.
And this sort of idea of sexual purity, which has been so bastardized, frankly. And so I was taught my body is a problem. I am deviant for having any sort of sexual impulses, desires, just like a normal person would and does. That's how we're made. But then I was in charge of my own pure sexuality, but I was also in charge of all the boys because depending on how I looked, depending on what I was wearing, depending on how I was carrying myself, I was a real problem for them. And that was my responsibility, not theirs, I guess. And so on one hand, I had this like, whoa, your body it needs to be policed and it is dangerous and it is the source of a lot of sin. And something about your body is bad. Message received. I got that so bad. And then, of course, we get this ancillary, like, mainstream message. And I won't belabor the point, 'cause so much ink has been spilled, but about how our bodies look and how they're supposed to look and what is beautiful and what is pretty. And by the way, that's a shifting target. Just pick a
Always.
different decade, and that has
Yes.
changed.
Yes.
And so, how we are supposed to look to attract the male gaze, to have success. And frankly, the deeper message is more insidious. How we're supposed to look so we can finally be happy. I took that hook, line, and sinker. If I can get to this weight, God, I will just finally be happy all the time, like I've been wishing to be.
Yep.
And so I learned early on, there's nothing good in here.
Yep.
And then you add this faith layer that says, whatever it is that I want, my desires,
Yep.
something about those are highly suspect. I am not a trustworthy narrator in my own life. If I want something, it's probably selfish. And so I learned early on to outsource all authority. I had no personal authority in my own life. I was not trustworthy enough. I was not reliable enough. And so I handed that to everybody else. You guys tell me what to do. You guys tell me what to believe. You tell me how to act and who I am. And so that is a very hard reversal. That is a very, very hard reversal. And I'm still working. I'm 51 years old. I do not have this reversed. I have a lot of it reversed, but that voice still creeps in all the time that we are, whatever it is we want, think, or need, it's got a question mark attached to it. And so I think it's the work of our generation to change that narrative. And I see that happening. You know, I've got a 25-year-old daughter. I have a 19-year-old daughter. They're different. They're different. They're coming up different. It's a wonder to watch. Like the way they are with their friends, the way they feel about their bodies, the way that they feel about how they look, who they are, who's in charge of them. Subplot, they're in charge of them. Spoiler alert. They're in charge of them and they know it. It's amazing.
It's
so
amazing.
I think this work is slow and laborious, but I do see it having its effect.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I even see it with my kids who are so young, right? Like 6 and 3. And today they were talking about, my little one was like, got to get that protein in, like, as in we're looking at food as like, how are we fueling our bodies?
I
And like,
mean,
do you know what I mean? And it's like growing up in the I
so
can't believe
awesome.
it's not butter era of things.
Oh,
It's like, girl,
jeez.
you slather that butter on that bread and you eat that. Like, that is
So
fuel.
good.
And so it's beautiful and it's hard work, but I think it's interesting. And honestly, I think your book, it was so fun because as I was reading it, I would like read bits of it out loud to Drew because you're so funny. And there were so many like instances where I'm like, oh my gosh. But the thing that I think was so pure in it is like whether anyone has been through an experience that you have, which really the book starts at the crux of like infidelity and that you go back to you as a child and it's like any woman reading this, no matter if you're a woman of faith, if you've been through infidelity, anything, there are pieces of
Yeah.
your existence that you see. And I think it's interesting to think about how we have lost our connection with ourselves. And again, how our eyes are like not going inward. We're looking out like, yes, is this good? Is this right? Is this good? I just the other day in therapy, I was talking to my therapist and I'm like, I am a glutton for punishment in the sense of if I am good at something and I've been told I'm good at something, I'll keep doing it, even if I don't
Yeah.
like it. Like I was
Yeah.
a collegiate diver and I hate being wet. Every single
It's
day.
insane.
I got into a pool, a
Insane.
freezing cold pool. I was telling my kids about it the other day, and I'm like, it was so cold. It was the middle of Wisconsin winters. It was freezing. I hate
Yeah.
being wet. Nowadays, my kids are like, Mom, why aren't you in the pool? And I'm like, I was in a pool for an entire decade of my life. I hate being wet, but I was really good at it. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting to see, like, well, where do we stop listening to ourselves? And like, where do we
Yeah.
stop trusting ourselves? And I think it's a little bit. So one of the things that I think is really interesting, and knowing you personally, I want to go deep on this, is, I mean, your life literally crumbled. I met you in the aftermath,
That's
sitting
right,
there
you did.
eating a cookie, looking out at Lake Superior.
That's right.
And I want to know, after everything kind of crumbled for you, how did you know what part of like Jen Hatmaker, the brand, not just the person, was actually who you truly are versus who you performed? As a diver, I was a performer. There's an aspect of that when you are your own personal brand. And so how were you able to separate real life from the role you had been playing?
For a while, I didn't have to be like cognitively aware of that distinction because everything was so busted.
Yeah.
Everything was so shattered. There was no sorting out of the rubble at that point. It was all rubble. And I couldn't have even had the wherewithal to go, this rock, this crumbled rock is a keeper.
Yeah.
This one is a go.
Yeah.
It was all chaos, all trauma.
Yeah.
Everything was frozen. And so emerging from that was really an interesting process. And some of the requirements of becoming a single, absolutely independent adult at age 46, having been married at 19. So when I say that that was a new experience, I was a literal teenage bride. So I had never had a moment of independence in my functional adulthood. And so to some degree, coming out of that going, wow, I am now in charge of my whole life by myself. I do not have a safety net. I do not have a partner. The buck stops here. And so that caused me to take a really hard look at everything. What am I building? What matters to me? What needs to go? What needs to stay? And some of that, to your question, and I hate this word. I'm using it because it's such a shorthand to get there.
Yeah.
But then there's this question of what about optics? You know, like that's
How
the
do I
question.
spin this? Yeah.
Or what is it?
Yes.
Who am I?
Yeah.
Like, who am I now? Because I've been in the public space, like leading women for over 15 years. It's a long time, almost 20. And I had spent, among other things, plenty of time talking about marriage and family
Yep.
as something I always counted on. I There is no amount of money I would not have put on the square that said, we're going the distance. We're going to be one of those 65-year couples. We got the long game in hand. I had so much faith in our story and in our marriage. And so having lost that, it was interesting for me to kind of look around with clear eyes at my community and go, well, have I lost my credibility have I lost my credibility with you? Is this a deal breaker for my leadership in my own world? Who am I now? And it was really interesting to have my community be a very, very generous and clear mirror to who I am.
Mm.
It seemed foggy for me for a while because everything was. I mean, also, when have I not been a wife? How am I not a wife anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not a daughter-in-law anymore. I'm not a sister-in-law. Like, I'm not married. I mean, it was really hazy for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was interesting for my community to reflect back to me, hey, okay, you're not a wife anymore. Here's what we see in you still.
Yeah.
Here's what we love you about you still. Here's who we see you to be still. This is the character of you that seems evident. That was so incredibly anchoring and useful when I was still like clawing my way up to the surface. And so I am actually so grateful for that now. It's been 5 years. And I can now see how much of the outer part of me, that outer optical part of me, is just gone. Yeah. Just absolutely gone. As evidence, because Jenna, you have read it. The shit I say in this book is bananas. Like, I would have never before admitted some of the stuff I admit, copped to some of the things I copped to, examined my interior life with such a fine-tooth comb. I mean,
it's a woman who's been through things, because when you've been through things and you survive them, you're like, ain't nothing gonna take me down, right? Like,
what else can I lose?
Yes.
What else can I lose? I've already lost what I thought was the most precious thing to me.
Yes.
And so I see that outward polished version of me, which, to your point, is what anybody who has a public job has a version of that, to whatever varying degree. But that part for me has the shine is off the penny for sure. And it feels like a relief to me. It feels like a real relief. I wrote a piece just this week for like my community where I was like, look, I'm kind of trash in a lot of ways. I'm like, I'm not as good as I want to be. I'm not as good as I've pretended to be. I'm okay. I'm like, I'm all right. I'm medium at best. And it feels just so good to live in what is an undeniable truth of being a normal person in normal ways. And so anyway, we'll see how that goes. I love it. Apparently, I'm not afraid to say almost anything anymore.
When we were young, we dreamed of castles and fairy tales. And as we grow up, those dreams might shift into building something real, like starting a business. You need a website, payment systems, a logo, and a way to reach customers. It can all be overwhelming and confusing, but thankfully, that's where today's sponsor, Shopify, comes in. Shopify powers millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all US e-commerce, from big brands to folks just getting started. They offer beautiful, ready-to-go website templates so you don't need design skills to look professional. Their AI tools help with product images, descriptions, discount codes, and more. Shopify also makes it simple to run email and social campaigns so people can find you. And if you ever feel stuck, their award-winning 24/7 support is always available. Turn those dreams into and give them the best shot at success with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/goaldigger. Go to shopify.com/goaldigger. Shopify.com/goaldigger. This podcast is brought to you by Mercury, banking that helps entrepreneurs do more with their money. Okay, I remember in the early days of my entrepreneurship journey, clients would literally mail me checks, and then I would have to drive all the way to the bank to deposit them. It took me literal years to make things go digital, and I am ashamed to admit I still have a filing cabinet with paper contracts because I'm way too afraid to throw them away. But that's the beauty of growth, right? Like, you learn what systems serve you and which ones hold you back. Mercury is one of those systems that just works. Where traditional banking websites and apps are clunky and hard to use, Mercury is meticulously designed to make doing just about anything with your money feel effortless. And the best part is, it flexes to fit all types of businesses. Ready to see what powerful banking can do for your business? Visit Mercury.com to apply in minutes. Mercury is a financial technology company, not a bank. For important details, check the show notes. Well, I think it's interesting as you're talking, it makes me reflect on how, as entrepreneurs and stuff, a lot of times the brands start as being incredibly relatable. And as you put yourself out there, people try to box you back up and remind you to like stay in your lane, stay in your space. And all of a sudden, the version of you that's being presented to the world is the polished version, right? It is the shiniest bits of it, because people are like, no, don't talk about that. You're a business person. Don't talk about body image. You're this. Don't talk about that. And so all of a sudden it's like the package on the stage is a manufactured based off of criticism of strangers, where it's the world telling you, get back in your lane, get back in your lane. You're not meant to be over there. And I feel like sometimes when you lose it all or you've been through something, you kind of are like, screw this. This is not it. This is not me. This is not it. And like, I'm willing to risk it, because you've risked it all many times before. Right. And so it just makes me ponder, for somebody listening to this who is building something that is tied to you as a person, like, how do you invite the whole person in, right? Not just the parts of you, like not the palatable pieces, but like the whole existence. Because either you have to create insane boundaries around where the brand starts and stops and where the human life begins, or you've got to figure out a way to be the whole messy, beautiful person and not care about what is thrown your way and not let that alter you. And I don't know if that's possible.
What could go wrong?
Right?
That seems easy.
Right.
What an easy needle to thread.
Right.
Piece of cake.
It's crazy. On this topic, one of the things that I think is really interesting, and I actually was having a conversation right before I hopped on with you that made me think I have to ask Jen this. One of my dear friends was telling me, I feel like I'm aging out. I feel like I am irrelevant. There are young people popping up every day and they've got the language, the cool thing. And one thing that I think you have done really beautifully is like, you've looked in the mirror of what is aging gracefully, specifically in the public eye, but also with like what you've built. And you kind of basically said, screw it. And you've reinvented yourself, your life, your career, the way you write at 50. Yeah. So tell us why the pressure to maintain consistency or to stay palatable is kind of a weapon used to keep us small.
Well, first of all, there is a secret that I have discovered because I'm older than you. And so there's no way to discover the secret except to get there, which is that the fallacy of getting older equals irrelevance in any way, the way that we look, where we are located inside our particular business or like career space, pick a thing, is, oh my God, that's a big lie. Because guess what? Me and all my friends, we're 50. We're in our 50s. We're up here at this. A lot of my mentors are north of me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, guess what? We get better. We are better. We get better the older we get. We are smarter. We are wiser. We are better leaders. We are better partners. We are better builders. We are way more in tune with our own integrity. We are less afraid of change or risk or loss. We are less afraid to disappoint other people. So that is a story that has been told to young women in order to keep them in line, in order to keep them small. But the truth is, our best days are ahead of us. Mm-hmm. And so that does not mean that what we cannot do is look at the next generation coming up, building their little dreams just like we did, and imagine that is a threat to us. That is such small thinking. That is patriarchal thinking, that there's only so many seats at the female table. And when the young girls start pulling up their chairs, we're effed. It is not true. It's just not true. It's not functionally true. And so we need that because they're coming up with innovation and energy. They've got
Yes.
the energy of youth.
Vitality.
God bless. God, bring your fresh
Yes.
energy
Yes.
into the room, please.
Yes.
But what we have, because our seats are still at the table,
Yes.
is we've got the leadership acumen. We have the experience. We have the generosity of spirit. Hopefully that wisdom has given us having led and lived this long. And so I just don't find it true at all. And even in my life in best practices, I am going to women ahead of me going, is there any way that you could speak to me for 10 minutes about what you know about this thing? Like I need somebody to tell me something. And then boom, the most brilliant thing you've ever heard. And so I kind of reject the message.
Yeah.
I reject the message that we are irrelevant simply because there's a next generation coming up.
Yeah.
They will add to what we have built, but we are not done building. And
yes.
so I just turned 51. It's so awesome here. And so now when women ahead of me tell me, hey, Jen, wait till your 60s.
You're
gonna
like, all right.
I'm like, I
Game on.
believe you.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe you now.
Yes.
Like, I think you're telling me the truth. I think that women in midlife and north of midlife are the shit.
Yeah.
And so we'll only be irrelevant if we take ourselves away from the table.
Ooh,
So that's up to
yes.
us.
Yes. Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I was recently on a trip and there's one woman who's about a decade ahead of me and one woman who's 2 decades ahead of me.
Yeah.
And like, I am just eating it up. Like,
Yes.
let me just sit at your table and hear all the things you've learned. And like, it's just like, wow, it is so nourishing. And it's funny. My husband is on a bocce ball league with my dad and my grandpa. Blessed.
Very cute.
So Minnesota.
That's very cute.
And my brother and brother-in-law. And so every week they would play bocce ball and then they would go to this bar called T-Bones, which is exactly
Very
what you
cute.
would imagine.
I can see
And
it.
Drew was like, he just said, he's like, I just like sit there. I don't say anything because like my grandpa and his brother and my dad are just like reliving so much and have so many stories. And I'm like,
God.
we don't do this enough. We don't put ourselves with
so
other
good.
generations enough and just sit like, shut up. We don't know it all. They, you know, like, and so it's just, I think it's like,
I love that. I wish I could be at that table with those men and just
Right.
hear whatever it is they're yammering about.
Yes.
I want to know.
I know,
I want your
same.
stories.
I'm like, oh, it's
Yeah.
so good.
So good.
So one thing that I mean, I've read your books. This book is so different.
Yes.
Awake is like a whole new spicy take. And one of the things I love about this book is I feel like for so many of us, we have been wired in this like show and tell way, right? So it's like, let me show you this thing and then let me tell you what I learned from it or like what you
Totally.
should get out of it, right? Which is a beautiful way to lead. This book is not that.
That's right.
This book is like, I'm going to tell you my thing and like the world will show you what you need to see in it or the world,
exactly
like it will
right.
be revealed. And so
That's a great way to put it.
I want to talk about authenticity because I feel like you have been authentic to your ability and to what you've known to be true at every step, right? But this is a whole different Jen writing this book. And I want to talk about the cost of it because I think that it is risky, right? This book probably feels a little scarier to put out into the world than your other ones because they were a little
That's right.
more palatable. They were a little more expected. Not that they weren't great. They were just what
No,
we
yeah,
assumed.
you're 100% right. Yep.
What business opportunities or even like relationships did you stand to lose by being this honest? Like, what were you thinking about when this copy got sent out? Because this is when it really becomes real. When it comes out of the Google Doc and it goes out into the world, what were you thinking about?
I feel like I lost sleep for 1 year over this. And I'm not being hyperbolic. To your first point, I just have never written like this. I've always written in a very prescriptive way.
Yep.
Like, this is an idea. I have like worked it down to its bones.
Yep.
I will tell you all my conclusions. I will hand that to you as a reader. And now I've done all the work for us.
Yeah.
This is what we think of this.
Yeah.
This is our conclusion about this idea. Just, it's done. And everything is in hindsight. Everything is commentary. Everything is distilled down to what I think is the So this is zero prescription. It's not in chapters, it's written in memories, it's vignettes. So I started looking at all these little tiny moments and memories of my life spanning 40 plus years, going, I think a lot of these are connected. I think this experience that I had in fourth grade is somehow connected to the way I feel about my body in my 40s.
Yes.
And so I just put those on the page. And to your point, then it's the readers. You are going to have to take from this what you need, what you conclude, how you evaluate this, how this applies to your life. That is so different from, I've never trusted my readers like that. I've always wanted to lead the witness stronger than that because I'm so over attached to people's perception of me and their opinion of me. And so I never wanted to leave too much up to the reader, because what if you get it wrong? Right? What if you misinterpret what I meant or what I wanted you to think or what I concluded? So I kept that so tight that there was really nowhere to go. So this is so different than that in every possible way. And I mean, I don't think it's like surprising to say that in a memoir that includes the story of my divorce, the loss of a marriage that was 26 years long. I mean, our whole adult life, there are some relationships here in this soup pot that are challenging and have been challenging even before this book is coming out. Like, what does it look like when you're divorced? What about that family on the other side that you were a part of for all those years? What does that mean? Where's the handbook for this? And I remember really early on, a really good friend of mine who had got divorced a handful of years ahead of me. Early in my divorce story, I remember just trying to hold all the threads of my family together. The one that I came from, my original family, the one I married into, everybody. Like, somehow we're going to keep this ship afloat. Like, even if the marriage right in the middle of all this is over. And I remember her saying, I was just like, we love each other. That's been like a second set of parents. She said, I know you mean that. And I know that you're sincere. And I know that you love them. And I know that they love you. But I want you to be prepared that those relationships are not going to stay the same. And I was like, no, I think ours will. I think ours will. I think we'll be able to do it. We were not able to do it. And so I say in Awake, divorce breaks a million hearts. And that includes our families, our parents, everybody who used to be a brother or a sister-in-law and is no longer. It includes our friend group. We were just smack in the middle of a whole friend group. What do you do there? The friend group got divorced, right? And so I was so mindful of this question that you're so mindful of it.
Yeah.
Of wanting to be careful and generous in this book, so that I was not just going to torpedo whatever relationships I have around this story. The question that I asked myself, Jenna, I asked myself this over and over and over because I was thinking what you were asking the whole time.
Always.
Was, will I be proud of this in 5 years? Will I be proud of this whole book? And then I got more granular. Will I be proud of this memory that I'm deciding to include? Will I be proud of this paragraph? I got down to the nitty gritty. Will I be proud of this sentence? And when I tell you, that kept me deleting things because these are people. This is our actual life. This isn't just a book on a shelf. Like, this is our real family. It's our real life. And so I hope that I have been compassionate. I hope that I have been self-aware and that I did not just default to a victim-villain trope. And I hope that I had my eye on the long game here. That, however, this book will come and go. All books do. But we still have a long road in front of us that's going to involve graduations, marriages, grandbabies. I care about that, and I have to care about that.
Yeah. Okay, can we talk about bras for a second? Because honestly, for the longest time, I just accepted that being uncomfortable was just a part of being a woman. Like those underwire digs, the straps that leave marks on your shoulders, spending half of your day readjusting everything. I thought that was just life. But then I kept hearing about the Skims Fits Everybody collection everywhere. And I finally gave in and I tried it, and I totally get the hype now. The fabric is ridiculously soft and stretchy, but not in that cheap way where it loses its shape. It literally feels like it was made for your body specifically. And I'm not even kidding when I say I forget I'm wearing anything half the time. It is one of those things where you don't realize how uncomfortable you've been until you finally experience what comfortable actually feels like. Now, trust me on this one, you just need to try it. Shop Skims Fits Everybody collection at skims.com. Once you place your order, make sure to let them know we sent you. Just select podcast in the survey and choose the Goal Digger podcast in the drop-down menu that follows. You know, I only share stuff I'm genuinely obsessed with. And so when I kept seeing Boll and Branch sheets all over Instagram, I was like, okay, are these actually worth the hype? Drew and I have been using their sheets and duvets for over a year now. And honestly, our bedroom feels like a completely different space. The moment you touch these sheets, you'll get it. They're incredibly soft to start, but they literally get softer every time you wash them. They're made from 100% organic cotton, so they're super durable. And they're breathable, which is perfect for piling on cozy layers without turning into a furnace at 2 a.m. This is hands down the best bedding I've slept on, and I'm so genuinely excited for you to try it. Start building your sanctuary of comfort this fall with Boll and Branch. For a limited time, get 20% off your first set of sheets plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/goaldigger. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/goaldigger to save 20% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions apply. One of our favorite ways of earning extra income as a couple has been by hosting our spaces on Airbnb. Drew and I have always loved finding creative ways to make our spaces work for us, but let's be real, between being parents, running a business, and juggling travel, we don't always have the time to manage all the little details. On top of that, we live in Minnesota and our properties are in a different state, so handling the day-to-day just isn't possible for us as hosts. That's why I think Airbnb's co-host network is such a smart option. With the co-host network, you can hire a high-quality local co-host to take care of your home and your guests. They handle all the day-to-day management from guest communication to on-the-ground support, so the stay runs smoothly even when you're away for work or traveling. Think of them as your local hosting superhero who knows the ins and the outs of creating amazing guest experiences. If you've ever thought about hosting, but it seemed a bit overwhelming, now it is easier than ever. Find a co-host at airbnb.com/host. I love that. I think so many entrepreneurs, there are pieces of their story that, I mean, entrepreneurs are often people that have had chaos in their life at some sort and that want control. And they're crazy enough to believe that they can get it. There's
That's rude.
Crazy stat, right? Of like people that go into this, like, are people that generally come from chaos. And
it's so interesting.
I think it's really interesting when it comes to our stories. I know even myself, like I remember Bob Goff saying this line once of, no matter what you share about somebody else, it's almost like a group photo. They're going to zoom in and just look at themselves. Do I look good?
Oh, that's a great metaphor.
Yes. And when I heard that, it's so true, right? Like you could have a group photo. You've seen it all the time. People post group photos. Other people's eyes are closed, but they look great, right? And
so true.
When it comes to whether you're writing a book or you're sharing a story of your past or you're talking about your childhood or whatever, the people in your life are zooming in on themselves. Do I look good? Yeah. And it can be a predicament when you're a creator and you have something to say, right? Because you're trying to share your story, but there are always going to be people on the fringe. There's always going to be people in the arena judging. There's always going to be people in the nosebleed section that have thoughts. And so it's like it's just this interesting predicament that you don't necessarily find yourself in if you're in a 9 to 5. You can clock in, you can clock out. It's a good day. And so I just think that it's interesting to consider. I love the long game thought of like, what does this really look like? Not right now. What will sell the most books? What will get the most curiosity? What's the clickbait that will get people to do it? Totally. But also like, can I sit with this in 5 years and feel right about how I present it? I think that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think That is why I'm so glad I did not write this 3 years ago. That there's a critique out there. I mean, isn't there always?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
like, why write about this 5 years later?
Yeah.
Why dredge up this story when now you're like happy and recovered? And I'm like, that's, I don't like the question
Yeah.
that we can only tell our own stories of loss or suffering when we're still hurting.
Yeah.
That it has like a shelf life.
Yeah.
Frankly,
No.
that is not the time to tell it.
No.
That is, you are writing from a wound
Yes.
and it shows. Some of you guys are writing from a wound and it shows.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that, you just sacrifice your own like discernment
Yeah.
when you decide to write still broken.
Yes.
And so to me, there is a sense of clarity, a sense of self-honesty that I probably would not have been able to access too early in my story. I was too hurt, and I was still wanting somebody else to tell me, none of this is your fault. You have been harmed. You are innocent. And so I think that there is a place to give yourself the benefit of time, the advantage of time to settle into your own story, to settle into your own complicity, to settle into your own integrity. And to me, that is wise writing. I have learned this the wrong way because the internet has provided for me 15 years of opportunities to come in with my hair on fire about something.
Yep.
A hair on fire because it just happened.
Yep.
And I have not given myself time to process, research, think, evaluate, analyze, nothing. And I take my little fingers to my little laptop and I fire off a hot take. The amount of times I have regretted that is infinite. Even 2 days later, I can go, ooh, okay, woo. That was not it. And so I have done this so poorly so many times because the internet gives us this option to just like absolutely like go into the stratosphere
Yes.
so quickly.
It's like the reaction versus the reflection, right?
Exactly.
It's like the internet is like just waiting for you to be set off and react
That's right.
with zero reflection. And I
Zero.
would argue it's not helpful. It's not helpful for us. It's not helpful for other people, right? Because that's it's so true. And I was telling you right before we got on, when you have sat with something long enough to feel like you can hold space for it and also like see it from the bird's eye view, it's a very different experience than when you're in the dredges of it. And, I was telling you when I went through my miscarriages, I like put them out. It was the reaction. It was literally like the day I found out, here it is, internet, like what is? And if somebody came up to me, which this happened in the grocery store and started telling me their own story, I had zero space and capacity to hold anything other than my grief at the time. Right. And so I think it's beautiful to be able to sit with it and have the space now to hear those other stories, to welcome them in, to, like to have that perspective. And I agree. I think that's wisdom. I think that's where ages are favorable and life experience is favorable. One thing that I'm so curious about, especially because all of a sudden you're now like single, you are independent. I actually remember talking to you about this very thing while we were sharing a trail cookie, is that a lot of times for us, when we hit places like that, whether we have a partner or not, we can use work as a distraction from pain, right? Like it's like this mode of I know this, I can do this thing, right? You couldn't hide behind your work when everything fell apart, right? Like everything fell apart, including your work in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so what would you tell a woman who's overworking to avoid dealing with what is really broken in their life, whatever that is?
Oh God. I have so much compassion for that impulse. You and I are probably similar in this way. Like some of our instincts trend toward overworking, overproducing.
Yes. It's easy.
I mean, not only is it easy, it's rewarded.
Yes. Yes.
So we absolutely get rewarded for that impulse. Like for those of us who are sort of naturally predisposed to ambition, to big ideas, just to sort of big career, whatever. And that has a billion, slivers to the pie chart. But that tends to be rewarded behavior, which is a terrible reinforcer when we are using it as an eject hatch out of real life, like recovery, processing, evaluation. And so, I mean, I know I did that for sure. I write about that there was a season that I overworked. This was in the immediate aftermath.
Yes.
I just felt like I needed to control something. I was so out of control. So much had been done to me, unto me, without my consent. I need something under my thumb.
Yep.
And I couldn't control my kids. I tried to control their experience of their parents' divorce. And turns out they just have to live their own hard stories. So, spoiler alert for everybody with youngs, with littles, you don't get to shield your kids from their own pain. I'm so sorry. I really did think I would be the first one able to do it. That somehow my kids would be the one that go unscathed. That they'll get through childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, just shiny. Okay, so I couldn't do that. So I couldn't control their pain or their process or their relationship with their dad or any of it. And so I had to push that one off aside. And so I could control work. And I guess let me just fast forward that story and say where that ended up for me was landing me in the emergency room. So if you want to know if that works out, I ended up in the ER with catastrophic blood pressure, panic attacks, depression, which I'd never really experienced in my life. I was a disaster. So my body decided to shut it down since my mind would not do it. Since my mind was like, oh no, the hell we will just charge forward. We will build and recover almost out of spite. And my body was like, hey, guess what? Let's go to the ER. Since you won't listen, I had plenty of warning signs, as you can imagine. You don't end up in the ER without any warning signs. I had ignored them for, I guess, a year. And so that was a real wake-up call for me. I was just telling Tyler, my boyfriend, this yesterday, that I am still like having to be really careful with my heart and all my labs and my blood work and my doctors. I now have to be careful with my heart. I just treated my body like it was a machine that could run on adrenaline forever. And it's not. It just sure isn't. And so I have since made some changes. I've made changes in my work life. I've made changes in my availability. I've made changes in the scope of my work and parts of it that I no longer will do because I don't want to. And it's just, I feel my life getting smaller, but
more expansive,
more in alignment. Like
100%.
Some of that hustle is just falling off the edges, and it feels really good to me.
I love that. And again, that's something we all have to look forward to. I think that might be like one of the hardest learned lessons, especially when you're an entrepreneur, is that piece. That's right. And it might look different for everyone, but I feel like there is a part of you that can die in a beautiful way when you see that, like, this is not sustainable. This is not the dream. This is so far from the dream that it kind of forces you into alignment. So, Jen, where can everybody grab a copy of Awake? Where can we connect with you? There's so much more to the story that you have to read. And I love this bootlegged edition. Like, when I see you next, you're going to sign it and it's going to be a prized possession. Tell us where we can connect.
Thank you. It's everywhere the books are sold. And over at my website, which is jenhatmaker.com, is just everything about it. Everything about this book and whatever else that I do and work on and create for the world. And thank you for having me on. And thank you for reading it. Thank you for being a good friend. Thank you for texting me. Like, the early texts that I got from my friends who are reading this way before the watching eye,
months
the watching
ago.
public eye, months and months and months ago, meant so much to me. It meant so much to me because it was such a tender story to tell. in a way that I have never told. And I thought, I do not know how this is going to go. I do not know how this is going to land. So like, Jenna, when you are texting me as an early reader going, this is what I'm reading, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm relating to, there's no way for me to explain like how much that meant to me. Where I went, okay, this is my story, but so much of this is our story. Like this is an unrelatable set of systems that we have all been plugged into. And so anyway, thank you for being a friend. And thank you for having me here in your space with your community. It just means a lot to me.
Right back at you, girl. I'm waiting for you to come back to Minnesota.
Love it there. You know I do, in the summer.
Thanks for listening to the Goal Digger Podcast. I hope today left you inspired and equipped with something you can put into action as you build a business that truly supports your life. If this episode resonated with you, here's how you can help the show reach even more entrepreneurs. Hit follow, share it with a friend who's building something meaningful, and if you're feeling generous, leave us a review. Those reviews help other listeners discover these conversations when they need them the most. This show has become so much more than I ever imagined, and it's because of listeners like you who show up and share. You are helping build something that will inspire entrepreneurs for years to come. For show notes, links, and resources, head to goaldiggerpodcast.com. Keep digging your biggest goals. The world needs what you're building.